Hey guys, Buckeye Bar Guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, that way anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome back, everybody. Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Today's date is Saturday, June 26th, 2021, and a little bit of a hiatus, but we're back. Had some busy weekends over the last couple weekends with some family stuff, and then we went on a nice little fishing trip up on Lake Erie, a charter trip. That was fun. We enjoy that. We try to do that like once a year. So pretty much for the last 3 years, or it's been 3 out of 4 years. But
who do we go through?
Seabreeze Charters.
Excellent service.
Yeah, I have they're out of Port or out of Oak Harbor, so just about 15 minutes west of Port Clinton. So yep, anybody ever want to go on a charter for walleye fishing, perch fishing, any of that stuff up there in Lake Erie, definitely we highly recommend Seabreeze Charters, and hit up our Captain Al.
Ask for Al.
Yeah, Al's they got tons of boats, tons of captains, but we've only ever had Al, and he's great. We really enjoy going out with him. So, nice little plug for them, but they are fun. We enjoy going up there. So, all right. So we got a pretty big show. It's been a weird month because it's been busy because of they had so many weeks of recruiting, but it's also been kind of slow. It's like some information starting to leak out now, and we also got some information, maybe some practice information, some of the workouts. We'll share some of the stuff, at least some of the insiders have been sharing. But pretty much the kind of the big news that hit yesterday, which we'll start off with today, is JTT, big time defensive lineman out of the state of Washington. He's the last remaining guy for 2021 of any note. Top 4 kid, depending on the service. I'm top 1 in some services.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the Buckeyes have been right in there for him for this whole time. Never got out for visits because of, all the COVID and, the dead period never would lift. And basically because of COVID, and they just never could get him on campus, and he wanted to do his due diligence and check out some places, and don't blame him for that. So he's this whole month's been playing trips. So he's hit up the 3 Pac-12 schools, Washington, Oregon, and USC that he's considering, hit Ohio State up, and everything coming out of the Ohio State visit last weekend, sounded great from everything. It sounded like he highly enjoyed it. Basically said that they've checked all the boxes for him.
Right.
And it seemed like the Ohio State coaches from the things that have leaked through the insiders, they hit a home run. So he went to Oregon then right afterwards, and then he was supposed to go to Alabama this weekend, and he canceled it yesterday and pretty much removed them from the running. It's between us and the 3 Pac-12 schools that were mentioned. So could be big news. If we end up getting him, you imagine, you just think what Jack Sawyer did in the spring game and just all the inside information that's coming out about him.
Yes.
That could be the biggest haul that they've gotten in defensive linemen ever.
Well, if you consider the 2 tackles they brought in too, with Mike Hall and Tyleek Williams.
Yeah,
that's you almost, those 2 ends, they overlook those tackles a lot, but they overshadow them. But that's a big time haul if you get JTT into this class.
Yeah. And then, when you consider what they've taken over the last several years and what they've put into the NFL, and then you think that this class could be the most special out of them all, and just because if they end up getting him on top of Sawyer, on top of Williams, and on top of Hall, it's hard to say that's just a cherry on top because that's one hell of a cherry.
No, that's that's a lot more than a cherry.
I don't like my cherry being overpowering the ice cream there, but
that's a cherry sundae is what that is.
That's a big cherry. So yeah, but yeah, if they could, and like I said, I know a lot of Ohio State fans have been seeing, some of them saying, "Oh, done deal," because Alabama's out of the mix. I get where a lot of people are coming from. It seemed like Ohio State hit a home run, but, and they have done unbelievably well the last several years out west. But still, to pull somebody, Oregon's a good school, and, they put kids in the NFL. Washington can put kids in the NFL. USC is still USC. They might not be Petey's USC or the USCs of old, but, it's still USC. So, nothing's a done deal. Those are all closer to home for them. So.
Well, and Washington, if I'm not mistaken, they usually do all right with defensive linemen in the NFL. That's kind of like, I think that's where they hit most.
Contrary to that one guy said, they don't do as well as Ohio State.
Oh, does. No. Yeah, that's not, they're not as good as Ohio State's defensive linemen, especially defensive ends where JT Tuimoloau wants to play.
Yeah. So I'm confident the Buckeyes are going to pull him out, but I'm not saying it's a done deal. If he goes and picks any of the other three schools, it'll be upsetting, but I'm not going to even say it's surprising because like I said, it's hard to get a kid away from home. And, everybody thinks just because, what Ohio State puts in the league, that's just a unbelievable advantage. And it's an advantage. Don't get me wrong, but if you're a superstar and you're at any of those three schools, they put kids in the league too. And as long as he pans out to what he's expected to pan out, he's a day one kid. So, Oregon could put him into the first round just as easily as Ohio State can put him into the first round. Yeah. So I'm not gonna be upset and, on my peed off that, he would go to one of those three schools. I'm not going to be surprised. It will be upsetting, but it wouldn't be, I'm confident about it that they are going to get it.
Larry Johnson could be the difference between a top 3 pick and a top 10 pick though. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, there is a little bit more money and value that, you go get coached by the best.
And then you got the two Bosas and Chase Young. Those are 3 recent things that you can really throw out there and say, hey,
these are defensive rookies of the year.
Yeah, we've done this. So, you could be this too.
This is the position you want to play, go for it. So, just about the whole Alabama before going into really the rest of what's going on with him. And I know I texted it to you for sure. I'm not sure if I said it on the last episode or not, or 2 episodes ago, because it's been so long and I didn't go back and listen to him. But the Alabama being the last visit, it never really scared me. Everyone else is like, oh, Saban gets the final crack at him. Saban's going to have, the bags are going to be waiting for him, whatever it may be. And I know that's mostly a joke. But if he was, JT Thomas from Florida, that would have scared the hell out of me that Saban's his last visit. But he's a kid from the West Coast. And just because, he's going to see Saban last, I never thought that meant, it was a done deal or it's like, hey, I'm leaving camp. Here's my, I'm putting the Alabama hat on right now. It is very hard, even for Nick Saban, to pull kids out of Washington.
Yeah, exactly.
So I never thought he had any of a better shot than what Ohio State did, even being the last visit, even with his national titles.
Yeah, I agree with that. I kind of said the same thing, is that exactly what you said. If it was a Southern kid from the Southeast, it might have been a little different. I would have been like, I don't like that.
Right.
That's, he at least gets the last crack. Ohio State, if it was between Alabama and Ohio State and the kid's not all Homer Alabama fan, then Ohio State has a shot there. But that's probably a 70-30, 60-40. I would say Alabama's probably going to get him. And, but not on this one. These Pac-12 kids are different. These are kids that have been very hard to get to come east for years and years. Yeah. Even with, the Pac-12 to me has always been the weakest of the Power 5. I guess you can have some arguments between them and the Big 12, but to me, it was especially since they went into the BCS or not the BCS, the playoff format. I mean, I know they got Oregon in the first year into the national title. That was a very good Oregon team. And, Washington made the 1 year into the playoffs, but they've never,
they've had a rough go.
There've never been any really, especially with USC has been really down. There's just not been any impressive teams to me out West where, Oklahoma, as much as the Big 12 has been kind of lousy in that same stretch, Oklahoma's been, they might not be a legit team once it gets to the playoff team, but they are a legit team within season that they can get into the playoffs. So,
but they're probably the 5th best team in the country most years, or 4th, whatever.
I would put them there. Yes, whatever. Exactly. Which I wouldn't even have a Pac-12 team in that, discussion point,
I don't see how in the last, since the playoffs started, how you could say one Pac-12 team would be within that. What were we, year 6 now?
Yeah.
7?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Ohio State's won a national title. Alabama's won 3. Clemson's won 2.
LSU's won 1.
So this will be going into 8, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Sure. Anyway, so 7 or 8, one of the two. But I would, within that time frame, if you could say, hey, rank your top 10 teams within the first 7 years of the playoffs, I would not rank any Pac-12 team within the top 10.
No, definitely not. There's,
but with that being said, though, it is hard to pull these kids out of the West Coast.
Yeah. This country is such a big country. I don't think people realize that. The distance between Seattle and Columbus, that's, that's not driving from Columbus to New York City.
Right. That's worlds away. Exactly. Yeah.
There's
a couple day trip.
Yeah. Driving.
Not everyone has, the ability to get a plane ticket.
So, it's a massive country and that is very, very, very far away. And so, yeah. It's not an easy pull when you try to pull these kids, even close to the Mississippi River, but definitely east of the Mississippi River.
Well, and what do we know? And all those teams, they always do very well with Polynesian kids.
Yeah, exactly.
And what do we know about Polynesian faith? They are very family oriented. So it's a very, very, very hard sell to get one of these kids to come thousands of miles, away from their family.
Yeah. So, it will be a big hit for Ohio State if they end up getting him. I like their chances. Like I've said, I think by the end of the weekend, we will find out that he's going to go to Ohio State. But like I said, I'm not going to get fired up if he chooses any of the other 3 schools because, those are in his backyard for the, 2 for sure. And, I know USC Seattle to Southern California is a pretty, the West is just, it's such open and wide spaces. Yeah. That's a pretty long distance too in itself, but all this stuff is just, it's been amazing to me that these kids have over the last several years, especially with Ohio State, is that Ohio State's actually been able to put some sort of wedge into that because, we've talked about this on the show before, and it just shows where USC is
the downfall of USC
because, if somebody like JT, I would always expect Washington and Oregon to be in play for him because those are close to home. Washington's a good school. Oregon's been over the last 15 years has been a program that has been in, 2 national title games and several big time bowl games. Right. And so I would expect them being close to him. But outside of that, USC was always in the mix. Any kid from the West Coast, if
they wanted him, he was going to USC.
Yeah.
Maybe with the exception if he was coming east, he might be going to Notre Dame.
Yeah. And that's just been like, it's just the downfall of USC. And that's why I still don't get why Clay Helton's still the head coach out there. That, maybe they don't like, if you can't get an Urban Meyer or something, maybe, they don't think anybody's better than Clay Helton. That could be a possibility, but you think that like you're losing a lot of opportunities here.
Now, that lingering issue though, because does anybody honestly, like when you think of guys that are equipped to run, an elite top tier program, does Clay Helton even come anywhere close to crossing your mind?
No, not at all.
when you're talking about USC, kind of like being the phoenix rising from the ashes, is it possible with a guy that maybe he's not on the hot seat, but it's always a warm seat for Clay Helton? Like, do you think, is that something that a top tier recruit can't get behind? Because you never know when your head coach is going to get fired.
Probably, now the weird thing about USC is and maybe I'm wrong. It's just a difference when you go out to, just the West Coast, that even the hot seats out there don't ever feel like they're as hot as the hot seats, how hot the seats out East can get.
Yeah.
Auburn's fired coaches, 2 years after winning national titles. And,
I just like Gus Malzahn had them in. I know he didn't win one, but my goodness, like they were winners. Like he beat Alabama. Like he has more wins against Alabama in the same time frame than any other team, in the country.
Yeah, exactly.
I know they play every year, but like the guy, I don't know. I don't think he deserved to get fired, but that is what it is.
But you get into the SEC, and there's even smaller schools that never win, and out this way, that fire coaches after 3-4 years, been where it just doesn't seem like that happens out west, that they're much willing to stick with guys unless they do something stupid. It seems like always the terminations out west are just over scandal type stuff.
Dumb stuff.
Over more than less than just wins and losses. But so I don't know when USC is willing to even really give up on him. He might be in a much stronger seat than even we think he is.
I could see your point there. So I would say then, Oregon, I think they have a real shot at this because Cristobal has been kind of building that defense. But what I have read around, I find very interesting is a lot of, with Tuimoloau, he wants to be a 4-3 edge rusher. Mm-hmm. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be a defensive end. There is no better person in the country to teach this position to him than Larry Johnson.
No, definitely
it's proven. There is no better person to teach him that position to get him ready for the NFL next level, big paydays. But Oregon, schematically, they run a 3-4. So I'm not sure how big of a player they really are.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, he's said that, he definitely wants to be a 4-3 edge rusher. You imagine him coming from a strong side defensive end position. That's scary. He's a big dude though, so he could be a 3-4 defensive end.
Oh, sure.
But those are not necessarily edge rushers, and 3-4s usually your outside backers are more the edge rushers. But so that definitely puts Ohio State in a very, I think, big advantage. Really, it's going to come down to, I think, all the advantages that Ohio State gives them against being home, and knowing that being home, if he still ends up being the guy that he is possibly destined to be, he's still going to be there at the end of the day for, a big time NFL scoop up and make his money and gets his payday. The guy's got all the tools. He's already at 280. He's a beast.
Oh yeah. There is no better person to show you how to perfectly use all those tools to, master your toolbox than Larry Johnson.
Yeah.
So I think that has to weigh heavy on the kid's mind.
Yeah, exactly.
There was one other thing I was going to say about him. I'm losing it though. So I'm not sure we can move on. Him and Jack Sawyer on the same line together is going to be scary as hell. Not that this was what I was going to talk about, but, it did come out that Jack Sawyer changed his number from 33 to 40 when he was in high school. And there's a lot of people who were like, well, it was retired. They had to wait for clearance because it was Hopalong Cassidy's number. That's something like, if someone says to me, hey, the number's retired, you can't have it, I drop it there. I don't see Jack Sawyer as the type of prima donna that he would continuously harp on being number 40.
He's been there since he's been there since January. I would just think usually that stuff has to go through the family. Are they okay with it? Is the school okay with it? And is the family okay with it? Because Hop's been gone for a couple of years now. He passed away a few years ago. I would think that obviously his family, if his family had a big deal about him taking 40, they would still have the big deal with him taking 40.
Right.
So
I'm not sure it was ever an issue. I think it was just a retired number and he didn't care about it. But then who wore 33 in high school? None other than JT Tuimoloau.
Yeah.
And now Jack Sawyer's switching back to number 40. Yeah. So it's interesting. The writing might be on the wall there. I hope we land him.
And, there has been some, like I said, there has been some insider information that they definitely knocked it out of the park last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And they, them showing up in all the Islander shirts and the Ohio State Islander shirts, and then it's selling out within a few minutes on Fanatics. That was typical Buckeye Nation. I mean, of course, we're the same thing. We see them when they're wearing their stuff on that looks awesome.
Oh yeah.
And so,
I've been guilty of that many a time.
So yeah. All right. So moving on. So we did get a commitment. So running back Dallan Hayden.
Hayden.
I'm gonna have a hard time. I want to call him Dallas so bad.
I think everybody has been calling him. I've seen so many people on Twitter writing Dallas Hayden. Yeah. So, kid, you might have to change your name. I don't know what to tell you, but it's Dallan Hayden.
He's running back for he's a 22 kid, correct?
He's 22.
Looks like a good get. He's a little bit down the list, but 4-star. A lot of people are saying that there's a lot of feelings out there that he's getting ready to really start pushing up the list, because he was kind of a little unknown to a point, known but unknown, not like those top 5 known.
Yeah.
And and I've seen a lot of people say that they think he could be like Zeke, where if everybody remembers Zeke's, recruitment, that, he was kind of a little bit down there, but like Ohio State was on him so quick.
Right.
And like Ohio State foresaw that he was getting ready to blow up. And a lot of people are comparing at least that process, that they think that this could be the same thing. So, I watched a little bit of his film the day that he committed, just different things that were on there. He looks like he's
kid's fast, strong, didn't get touched a lot in those videos.
And obviously if Ohio State likes him, then, this is a kid that literally, you think about the haul they got last year, they're not just going to put somebody behind Trevion Henderson and they don't think that he could ultimately compete with Trevion.
Right.
So, they're not in the game of doing that. It's about literally, you got to try to match these recruits with other good recruits. So obviously they feel he fits well and that he can compete at this level.
I like it. I think it's a good pickup. I think he's severely underrated, which, I always thought, like last year with that pandemic season, it's like, man, it had to be so hard for those kids that were going to like senior year that didn't get to play, or, that everything was just as restricted as what it was. And they really couldn't like show out before like going to the college. But what about kids like this that were going from sophomore to junior year that probably made a hell of a leap from what they wore, and they had to go through that, and now like this, he's severely underrated because of it.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. And so that's another thing to where he could really start blowing up, is because none of the scouts were able to really get out and see any of these kids. And, there were so much restrictions everywhere, and,
and half of them didn't play seasons.
Yeah. So it's definitely it's a point of contention. I think once this kid, you see him start playing this year, a lot like Zeke was his senior year. And then like they realized just how good of a running back he was. Yeah. You're going to start seeing him probably move. And, so, Ohio State could be on somebody very special here, and early got a commitment. And if they could hold it out, could be very happy come December when letters get signed.
Oh yeah, I agree. You think definitely more than a bridge guy, right?
Oh yeah, I definitely, like at this point, like I said, these are all guys that you have to, and we're gonna talk about Trevion here in a minute, because we got some stuff out of just some tidbits out of camp and stuff, the workouts. But I think every guy that comes in now, you're basically building up behind Trevion, and so these kids have to be ready to go, because Trevion's, I mean, I'm sorry, he's a 3-year kid. I mean, I don't expect him being here past 3 years. So, I mean, you got to have kids.
I would imagine it had to be something catastrophic for him to be here past then.
Yeah. So, like, these are kids that are coming in behind him. They have to be ready to play for when that day comes and fill in spots and make sure that he's got people behind him that really can be competitive with him at the position, because competition just breeds greatness. I mean, we know that with Ohio State. They bring in all these top level receivers and all these other positions because, you know, that competition's good for all these kids.
Yeah.
You can't take a day off because the guy behind you is just as good as you are. And, you know, he's not taking the day off. And so, you know, that's always been important.
Yep. Definitely a big get for the number 1 ranked 22 class. Just got to hope you keep adding to it. Get a couple more defense, you know, get some defensive linemen for 22. Maybe a couple big offensive linemen are still out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a long shot, you know, looking at like Zach Rice, but, you know, fingers crossed it could happen.
Yeah. You never know.
You never know.
So, anything else on the recruiting front? Any big ones step out?
Yeah, and a ton of people that came in the month of June. I mean, this was the busiest recruiting month that I think has ever happened, and definitely in Ohio State history.
Yeah.
We only got the one. Well, no, because we had the receiver at the beginning of it. So,
and I think we talked about him.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. It sounds like we crushed it with a lot of top receivers. Of course, that's what Brian Hartline does. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really much more. You know, you're hoping to land a big one for 21 here within the next couple of days. And it has to be announced within the next couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially, it seems like I think all the summer school stuff has to be in by next week. So, I mean, I think if they get him into summer school, then he could start, you know, I mean, I know they're not practicing, but he could at least start doing team activities with the team, as long as he's enrolled. So, I mean, that's a big one if we can get him in for, you know, classes to begin, if he wants to come in for summer school.
Now, do you think, I mean, I've seen the kid. I mean, he's a big boy. Like he definitely doesn't need to gain weight for college or anything like that. Kid looks like he's strong. He's fast. He's large. I mean, do you think we get significant playing time from him? Year 1 missing this much time. I mean, you got to even say, even if he is bigger than Jack Sawyer, and I know like ultimately, you know, they're kind of playing different positions even as ends.
I mean,
but Jack Sawyer's got to be so far ahead of him.
Yeah. And Jack, I mean, he might be bigger than Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer, like size wise, looks like a freak though. As a freshman,
that dude is not 18 or 19, whatever he is. I don't know how old he is.
He's like 15 in his face. But
right, he would be. I mean,
he's like 25.
Technically, he would have just graduated high school, right?
Yeah.
So he can't be more than 18.
Yeah. And so yeah, he looks like he's 15 in the face.
15-year-old face with a friggin'
25-year-old
Adonis body.
Yeah. He looks like he's 25 and you know, this is getting ready to sign his second NFL contract.
His arms look like JJ Watts. Like, yeah, that he's huge. I don't know if I've ever seen an 18-year-old look like that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of depth there. I mean, you talk about Harrison, you talk about Tyreek. So I mean, there's just a lot of
Friday, Baptiste.
Yeah, there's a lot of people there. You got a lot of defensive tackles there too. So yeah, I think he could get in. It's not going to be right away. They need to get him up to speed. I mean, he has lost a lot of valuable time. It would be he would have come in somehow. If you know you didn't have all the dead period, he would have been able to visit. You know, normally. You know, I mean, if he would have came in when Sawyer came in, I mean. I don't even know how you do that type of rotation because he'd probably be right there in the mix too. And they'd be literally rotating 8 defensive ends. And
I mean, it's going to be one of the scariest defensive end rotations. If him and Sawyer both can give you valuable snaps this first year, I mean, think about that. Tyreek Smith, Zach Harrison, Tyler Friday, John, what's his name?
Yeah.
Shoot.
I think it's John, but
JJB, you know, so that's like it's just crazy depth and they're so talented.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I hope they land him.
I hope they land him too. So I think once they get up to speed, comes halfway through the season, though, I could very easily see him playing, and I might take him 4 or 5 weeks until they're comfortable with him taking any type of significant reps. But I think once they get him up to speed, I mean, he's going to be right in there for practice and stuff. And then next year, he's just going to be even better once he really starts getting Mick involved. And, you know, that's the only thing that sucks for him. At least a lot of these kids that came in January, they've had now they had winter workouts and they're going to get summer workouts with Mick, where he's really only going to get summer workouts if he comes in now. And so, I mean, you know, and that's valuable because, I mean, that's proven just how good of a strength and condition guy he is. I mean, there's just data beyond data how well he succeeds in his spot. So
right. And I mean to go back though, we kind of reverted back to him, but I think we're going to start seeing a lot of commits coming soon though. I mean, I think the groundwork was laid in June, and we're going to start seeing people rolling in, and you know, we're going to start seeing 23 kids too.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully Sonny Styles, hopefully we get a commitment out of him real soon.
Yeah. And that Webb, we made his final rotation.
Yeah,
Taiwan Webb, right?
Trayvon. It's out of Florida.
Yeah, he's from Trinity. Which Ohio State's had success with Trinity kids. So
you got Wade Crowley and Tyreek Johnson were all out of Trinity.
Yeah. So all right, let's so we've gotten some insider information, or not us particular, just things that have went
available out there
from the different beat reporters and a couple of their guys that have contacts within the program from several of the services. It seems like I mean, there's a lot of big love being thrown towards both Henderson and Marvin Harrison Jr. And
even Ohio State put out a picture of both of them, and they both look like grown men right now, not high school seniors.
So, I mean, which is scary to think of, that they should be graduating, and yet they look like they have been playing at Ohio State for 2 years.
Oh my God, they look like NFL players already.
Yeah. So, and then we've gotten some stuff now about Harry. Sounds like he's like really healthy, and
Harry Miller's finally looking healthy, they said.
And somebody said he had a torn labrum, and he just didn't have a lot of strength behind him.
Yeah, so that was where a lot of the holds came from, that he was injured last year, and so he didn't have a lot of strength to keep guys off of him, and that's how he compensated for it, was he was holding on to him.
Yeah.
So, but they said that doesn't seem to be an issue this year in camps and what they've been doing. So.
And I mean, we've heard tons of good things already about Sawyer. You've heard tons of, I mean, Harrison's name's been brought up how many times? Same with Tyreek Smith. I mean, so it's sounding like really positive with a lot of the defensive lineman stuff.
Yes.
I mean, multiple of these guys' names have been brought up that, you're hearing. But going back to Harrison and Henderson. So we'll start with Harrison first, because
Marvin Jr.
Yeah. I mean, I was so impressed with him at the spring game, and it just seems like he is going to be a real deal. Another right out at the beginning. I mean, you think it's just a Mecca that's coming in here, and this kid's going to get playing time too. And that rotation is just, and when you think about Mookie leaving and then Juice leaving, there's, I think, reasons because I think Fleming and JSN kind of cemented, especially JSN, but probably Fleming too. He's a little hurt, but I think they cemented themselves as, the best out of Mookie's class.
Oh, yeah.
And then Emeka and Marvin Harrison Jr. have come in, and I think they have now fully implemented themselves into the rotation. And so I think that's where then Juice ends up leaving out of, because he knows he fell down the depth chart. And
I realize your Olaves and Garrett Wilson's, like, they didn't have to do anything in that spring game, but your two best receivers on the field were Emeka Buka and Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
And so, that's scary, but can I ask, though, you're the son of an NFL Hall of Famer, correct?
Yeah.
He is a Hall of Famer now, right?
Yep. He's got the pedigree.
All right.
Big time.
You're 6'4", so you got the size.
Pedigree and size.
You smashed has most receiving records in the Philadelphia, I mean, it's just for like the Catholic League or whatever.
I think because not all Pennsylvania schools playing this year.
I don't know but he has all the records, and somehow this guy that physically doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with him either falls down recruiting boards. I mean, can you, in your memory, have you seen someone that was like, I don't want to say disrespected, but like, they got so wrong in the final season when it came to these recruiting sites?
The first two things madly disrespected.
Did he even end up a top? I don't think he even ended up a top 100 kid.
The first two things I noticed about him during spring was you could tell on both categories, his two best attributes. And that's not even getting to his speed, his size, his strength, which seems like they're all there too. These are all top attributes, right. But his two best attributes are he knows how to run routes. I mean, he was a crisp route runner and he knows how to catch the ball correctly. I mean, he puts his hands out there and pulls the ball in like you're supposed to do. I mean, you can tell that his dad was an NFL receiver,
right.
A big time receiver, and it taught him all that stuff because he picked up on that stuff perfectly. Because that's the first two things that I noticed. Been like, wow, he goes out and actually catches the ball with his hands, putting his hands out there, and he's beating guys just on routes. And that's not to mention that he's fast, he's strong, and he's tall. And so, I mean,
he has all the physical traits, but he can do those other things too that really separate you. And he can do them at 18 years old.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's only going to get better. I mean, imagine what he's going to be like in 2 years. And so, I mean,
he's got top 10 receiver written all over him. I mean, I know the NFL has changed a little bit, that it's more of like, they really covet not necessarily the big targets anymore. It's those real like deep threat type guys, the fast guys, which I don't know if Marvin has that type of top end speed, but he's a game changer.
I bet.
And at that size,
I don't know if he has, but he's got long legs. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what he looks like when he gets out into an open. And because I have a feeling that just from watching him run during spring, that he's got great football speed. I mean, I'm not talking about Ted Ginn speed, but I'm talking about that. I see if he gets a crease on somebody, he's gone. And, he's going to take ones to the house very easily because he understands the intricate parts of the game of football. I bet he gets angles and stuff like that. And so he's just going to put himself in positions where, he can take a 10-yard pass and take it to the house because he knows where everything on the field is. And, that a lot of that stuff's just as important as being able to run fast and catch the ball. And, he's already got a lot of that stuff.
Right.
So and I don't even know what impressed me more about his ability, the routes I saw him running, or his ability to catch the ball, because that is just everybody thinks it's so trivial that, I mean, us fans, everybody's always yells, you catch it with your hands, don't catch it with your body. But there's NFL receivers that don't even have that down. And, they're making millions of dollars in the league. And, I mean, that's just he just puts the hands out there and brings it in.
Well, I mean, to be able to make that stuff instinct, you have to work on it so many times that it's second nature. So, I mean, you can tell that he's not only, is he the son of a great NFL receiver, but he's actually put in the work to understand the game like his dad did.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're just not born knowing how to run routes.
No.
You're not born knowing how to use your hands to catch a football.
And, Marvin's been retired here for,
it's been a while,
several years. So he got to be there for his son during, the biggest parts of his football.
High school football. Yeah.
Yeah. And his, probably in his, heavy duty Pop Warner teams and all those all the way up through high school. So, I mean, he probably had the best critic in the world. It was his dad, and tell him what he was doing right and doing wrong. And, so yeah, I expect huge things out of him. I mean, he's going to be on the field a lot, and that's just scary to think about how many right now. I don't see any combination that they can't put onto the field that just absolutely will not scare the crap out of you. The thing that thing from last year to previous years is even though you have two top end great guys, once you got past them, there was a little drop off because you had freshmen that didn't really get a lot of playing time heading to the season because of COVID. And I mean, Juice is good. It just, I think he missed out on opportunities that he could have used that extra practice time before. I mean, and the COVID stoppages and stuff just screwed everybody when it came into that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But now, those freshmen that are now sophomores, I mean, well, technically still freshmen, they now have gotten that playing time. It seems like Scott has went into a position that's probably going to fit him better with the receivers they got in there. So he's going to be able to get onto the field. And now you got two more guys that have come in, and it just seems like right now, I don't care. I think if you got Olave and Wilson on the outside with JSN and one of the tight ends inside, and then maybe JSN comes off and you move Wilson down and you bring a Marvin Harrison Jr. on the outside, and then you also could bring a Mecca into the inside. I mean, there's so many different combinations that they can go with.
And a Mecca can play outside too. Like there's so much you can do.
And even if it's JSN in the middle and a Mecca and Marvin are on the outside, that's still a combination of receivers I don't want to be playing against. And because outside your big time schools that have come playoff time that have the secondaries that maybe could handle it somewhat, any school that they're playing in the Big Ten ain't going to be able to handle that.
That's still a lot for any secondary to handle, and
just loads of talent everywhere. And so I see so many different things they could do with the rotation. And it's just because and if Fleming becomes healthy, if he's healthy and ready to go this year, I mean, that's just another piece. And they could really, when you think about Scott and Ruckert as your tight ends and that 6-man rotation and in the receiving core, I mean, it's just scary. And there's going to be so many, it's just going to make the quarterback's job so much easier. He's going to have a good line. He's going to have a good back, and he's going to have a hell of a receiving core. So he just has to go find his open guy and, let them do the work.
Right. Yeah. Then you got a good line in front of him. That's just going to be, I think it's going to be a dream offensive season.
All right. So real quick on Henderson. So I kind of mentioned this to you earlier. I think right now, everything we're hearing from the insiders is that Henderson really could be truly pushing for starting time. Now, I said I thought he could be the starter right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. I think you agreed with me, but you were a little hesitant because there's other guys there.
I just think that there's guys good enough to hold him off, not necessarily better than him. I know they're not better than him.
I think we both agreed by the end of the season he was probably going to end up being your starter. Yeah. I might be in a couple weeks earlier than you thinking that he's get there. We're hearing just so many positive things about him right now and at this point, and I think you and me both agree, if he is, and this is nothing against everybody else there, if he is truly at the place to be there, if he's where everybody thinks he's at, then make him the starter and just, let him take the team. And, and I get it. If he ends up being the starter, Teague's there. I mean, he's in his graduate school now, so he's going to finish his career at Ohio State. Henderson becoming the starter right from the beginning, you could lose all those via transfers. You could lose all three of the middle, the guys.
And that's scary to think about.
You could lose from Crowley and Steele, which could be up in the air to begin with. And you could lose Mayan too, because these guys all want to play. And if you're a true freshman ends up taking their spots, that really going to put them, because, they got to look out for their future too. That's why recruiting in this position right now is important, because they need a guy they need to make sure. I like what I'm hearing about Dallan. They got to make sure that was a home run. That's a hit, because he needs to be there.
Yes.
The next guy, whoever they get for the 23 class, they need to bring in a legitimate guy, at least one into every class, because, there is a possibility you could lose two or all three of those guys in that middle grouping that are in between Teague and Henderson.
Right. And I mean, and they're all, you got to think with the COVID year too. I mean, that was those second year for Crowley and Steele. So we're already talking about this is their third year. The next year is their fourth year. So, I mean, you might just base off of not getting the touches. they may go somewhere because they don't want to split that much already, whether or not Henderson becomes the guy this year from the beginning.
Yeah.
If the writing's on the wall that Henderson's going to be the guy next year from the beginning, they may transfer anyways because they want to go somewhere that they're going to be a featured back.
And we know the NCAA is changing the transfer. I don't know when it's going to officially go into effect. I think that the whole body still has to vote on it, but it's past the committees that they're changing the transfer policy. They're going to get their one transfer without having to go through the NCAA for approval. COVID, they're going to get a year back because of COVID. So yeah, some of these guys, they might want to go. I mean,
right. They got that extra year.
They're going to get the extra year and they're going to be allowed to just go somewhere and not have to put in a reason why to go somewhere. So, and I really think it's a possibility. So, I mean, it was one of the deepest rooms. It's going to be extremely, nobody's transferring right now, but I could see the door opening by the end of the season because, it's just, I think if he ends up taking the job, and at this point, it's very possible that he is taking the job and Teague's going to be kind of like the power back that's going to get you when you need a 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, or right on the goal line, go get a touchdown. I mean, Teague's very good for that stuff. I could see that happening. I could see him doing some spells. It would be interesting if Henderson did take the starting job, who their main backup is, because, that would kind of give an indication who they want to try to keep over and who they don't want. That would be more open for them to leave. So is that Mayan? Is that Crowley? Is that Steele?
That's all up in the air. You don't know. I mean, I would say if all things are equal, Henderson has to be your guy.
Yeah.
He has to be. If he's as good as anyone else that's going to be out there, he has to be the guy. Or if he's better, he has to be the guy.
No.
You can't say you're a better player. But if he's not as good as them, then I don't necessarily think you need to put him out there right now. And I
agree with that.
Because I was kind of like at the spot, I was like, well, even if he's close, maybe he should be out there for his development and growth for the future of the team. But then I thought about it. It's like, no, if there is someone better, the better guy should be playing.
Yeah, the better guy should be playing. But if he is right, I agree with you. If
all things are equal,
if he's right there with them, all things equal, then yeah, I think right now it benefits them more having him as the starter, just because you're getting 3 full years with him, and so.
And you'll have time in any game if something's not working. If he's not the best pass blocker out there against Oregon, and their ends somehow, some way are having success against our tackles, and you need to put someone else in there for pass blocking, then you got time to do it.
Yeah. Which I think this year will be definitely I think they're going to be we've said this on past shows, they're going to be back onto where they were 2 years ago. I expect there's going to be a lot of blowouts this year, just because they've had a legitimate offseason. They're going to be ready to go. They're hungry after losing the national championship game. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities to get a lot of guys in at all the positions. So I could see them making other guys happy too. It just, we'll see what happens. It's just a true freshman taking the starting position could make an interesting room. And that's just my thoughts on it, but
it's funny to say, because it was such a short season and it was so disrupted last year, but like you said, like it'll be back to 2019. We're going to, start blowing teams out again. And it's like, if you honestly think about last season, though, outside the Alabama game, Ohio State at one point or another in every single game absolutely just torched the teams that they played.
Oh yeah, they were there was just a point that,
but maybe
some of the games,
not Northwestern, but
some of those teams
took care of
got a little bit back into the games in the second half. It seemed Ohio State just wasn't at the same conditioning level. They weren't playing as many guys as you could tell that they had a very short roster because, they would get up on teams very heavy in the first half. And then the year before that, it was always like that first quarter was kind of like a filling out period. It was always a little closer of a game. And then once they finally hit
second quarter was blitzkrieg, man.
When they finally hit their stride in the second quarter, and then they just, before you know it, they were up by 5 touchdowns. And then the second half was just, they weren't even trying to kill them in the second half, but they didn't give up additional points where, this year around, you could tell they got tired in games and they gave up some stupid touchdowns at different spots.
There's a lot of times that some of those guys, they didn't, I don't know. I don't want to say they didn't look interested, but there's definitely a lot of times that they didn't keep, the pedal to the metal when they started going up on teams this year.
Yeah. All right. So, last thing, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when the bill got introduced. Just want to give an update, and I'm not going to get into the real crazy.
No, we're not getting into the politics behind this.
Behind it, I that's a different show. We don't do high school sports, and I don't really get into.
I don't get into politics,
that stuff. So
I have my beliefs, but they're for me.
Yeah. It passed the Senate, the name, image, and likeness thing, 33-0. Wide support. Obviously, everybody was on board with it. Doesn't matter what letter you have next to your name. They were all for it. It goes in the House. Ryan Day goes to the House, talks. Seems like it's going to pass easily. It's going to be another blowout.
Right.
The emergency clause is going to go into effect, and they're going to have all the 2/3 majority they need for both houses. DeWine's going to sign it, and they're going to, it's going to get passed, and it's going to be law as of July 1st. They threw into an additional thing, if you don't know, you can look it up. It deals with, gender and stuff within the high school sports and stuff, and, playing sports. They threw that into the bill. Now, I've been pretty consistent about this. I don't care if you're that passionate about something, make it its own bill. Like I've always said that. I've said that into the federal level.
Right.
The one thing that annoys me, and I don't care which party does it, I hate when they start throwing little pet things into bills and stuff like that, like the COVID relief bills. And if you're going to pass COVID relief, just pass COVID relief. Why are we talking? If everybody determines that it's important that we get stimulus checks out to the population, why are we arguing over this weeks and weeks and weeks about all the little pet things we're also putting into it? Just pass the stimulus and then just move on to the other stuff and then discuss that stuff. And things can be separate bills. And I don't understand why in government things can't be.
Why they always try to sneak in
separate bills
what they want.
So
slimy, know what?
Yeah, politicians, just politicians. So they threw this thing into the bill. Obviously, it got the majority of support, but it did lose a lot of the Democratic support on it. And because of that, you basically lose the emergency clause in it because, it's got they don't have the 2/3 the majority there. And then on top of that, it's a different bill than what the Senate passed. So now you have to go back to the Senate and they have to work out a thing. And there's no guarantee they're going to approve this bill. And so they might have to go into a conference and blah, blah, blah. And, between the two of it. And, and DeWine made the best point out of all of them. This should have been a completely separate thing. And
well, I think
it seemed like everybody was on board for the name, image, and likeness part. So it's going to get passed. It's going to get signed into law. I think the Senate will pass something. They might have to haggle on between both houses on something. But, the emergency clause probably is the biggest thing that would have been for was JTT and the current guys on the roster, because, at least, a 90 day, anything goes into law after 90 days. So if they pass it in 2 weeks and it goes in law and becomes law within 90 days, they'll be within any of the 22 kids actually officially becoming Buckeyes. So, and it doesn't seem like, JTT, I don't think that's going to be the end all be all. Especially if that's important to him, it is going to pass. And by the time he's on campus, he will get his ability come fall.
He's got a long time to benefit.
Yeah.
From it.
So, and, I don't think any of those West Coast states have anything close to this yet. And California did pass, so maybe they have something.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think, Alabama was a threat because they are going into effect on July 1st, but they're off his thing. So it might not really matter. It's going to happen. It just seems like it's a bunch of nonsense for it that didn't need to happen for it to.
But then I read, that might not matter because the NCAA, they might just do their whole thing to come out with their own name, image, likeness that, the governor. You don't want those idiots touching everything or touching anything. You don't want them being the ones that make this. I don't know. I don't know what would be worse. Your politicians from the state of Ohio handling this or the NCAA handling this. This time I feel like a school should be able to say whatever they, this is our rules.
Yeah. And I don't want like the NCAA, well, you guys can do it too. It's just, but it's going to be within our guidelines.
Yeah. I don't want them touching anything.
I mean, I'd rather the state pass the bill and then the state allows them. And eventually this is all going to the federal government is going to pass a bill, but things move very slowly with Congress as anybody can. That's a whole nother thing. What pet projects get thrown into that bill? Then we'll be. You'll have a college name, image, and likeness, but then you'll also be building a dam in Puerto Rico or something.
The NCAA, they suspend kids for signing autographs in exchange for tattoos.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean it's going to pass. It's going to pass the state of Ohio. Definitely. I mean. DeWine didn't say he was like 100% would sign it, but the way he was making comments the other day, it seemed like he would have signed the bill the Senate passed pretty easily. Right. And, it's just, I've always said it's just politicians always make things a little harder than they have to be.
Oh, yeah, they make it a lot harder.
But it's coming. So, and like I said, we've talked about that in the past. I think it's a good thing. We both agree to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to happen.
Yeah.
And I wanted to happen right too.
Yeah. So they'll get it. I mean, it's going to get passed. So we'll see what the Senate says about the House's version. And so who knows? I guess we'll find out more about that this week. So I think unless you want to throw anything else in here that I think we're good for today.
No, man, we're good to go. Everyone enjoy the beautiful weather out there today. Yeah. Thanks for stopping out today to the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added. And please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.
IO.